All right, guys, welcome back into another PGA DFS live video. We have the Bermuda Championship this week. It's going to be kind of a fun one. It's a full tournament field event, and after two no-cut events, it's kind of refreshing there. The two no-cut events weren't that bad, though. Surprisingly good. Really, with no-cut events, I'm really just trying to break even. It was a little bit better than that, but still, those events you kind of just play to get the practice reps in for events like this and for kind of the Masters that are coming up. So, that was kind of fun to see, but I'm glad we have a full tournament field event, and it's one that last year we did pretty well at. It was the first time the event had been held. Brendan Todd obviously went out and won it. The stats that we were looking at last year held up to be true. I remember last year, I always like to look over the stats and data from the previous year to see, if it needs adjustments or anything like that. And last year, it was pretty spot on. Like, every player pretty much finished T18 or better. It was absolutely kind of crazy how many players finished T20 to T18. It was kind of cool, but we'll get into some of the breakdown of this week here. So obviously, like I said, first time this event has been played here, or second time now. Last year was the first time. It's not that loaded of a field. So you have Will Zalatoris, you have Justin Suh, kind of some up-and-comers right there, and that's pretty much it. Obviously, there's Harold Varner, Doc Redman. Those two are great stat fits. We don't know exactly what to think of those two this week. They're a little bit too hit or miss to always trust them, especially at their price points, but I think that those two will be fine plays as well. Charlie Hoffman was a guy that wouldn't surprise me if he went off and had a good week, although I'm just not really expecting that. Tringale and McCarthy, those guys are cut makers. They're good stat fits this week. Christopher Ventura as well. So it's definitely an interesting week overall. I will say there are some really kind of weird players that are getting hype and players that are not getting hype. So this could be a fun week with kind of what's looking like is going to be some bad chalk, and then some players that are going to be under-owned that really shouldn't be. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. But we'll get it kicked off here with kind of the high end, just kind of breaking it down real quick. So Emiliano Grillo is one of the interesting plays this week. Great stat fit. Been finishing right around T35 to T20. Nothing really great except for the one start at the Bermuda Championship, or Barracuda Championship, which is an event you can look for comp course-wise a little bit as well. So, he did perform there, had T21 at the Crowley's Championship as well. So those two events, it's really favoring him, which I think is why he got this high price point. He's typically a guy that does make the cut as well. He is casually kind of checking all the boxes, although I don't mind him. All right, so Andrew kind of brings up one of those questions, one of those players I was kind of hinting towards a little bit earlier, Max Homa. He's been getting a little bit of chatter, and I think it's mostly just because of his price point. People like to play him, and he does kind of have those random ceiling pop weeks where he just goes off and has a great week. You saw it at the 3M Open, and that's kind of been him throughout his career, really. I can't really trust that, to be honest with you. For me, I have to at least see something stat fit-wise or something recent form-wise, and he just hasn't really shown that. So, I don't know, I'm a little bit worried about him, but maybe having kind of a reset here mentally. He played the Shriners, but other than that, he's been off for about, 2 months now. So, maybe figure it out, although I just don't see it. I can't really trust that. For me, I like to shoot 4-6 for 6, and I can't really trust that. Brennan Grace, maybe Grace, but I think there's better value than that. It's kind of the theme of this week, though. There's a huge drop-off, so look at that. It's just not been good. Now, it hasn't been horrible. You got to look at some of the starts there. -1, -7, -1. That wasn't horrible, but then it got bad quick. So, once again, this is another one of those plays that maybe they're kind of doing a mental restart in their head. BMW Championship, that was a Euro Tour event. Hasn't played on the PGA Tour in almost over a month as well. I think there's much better value out there than Grace, than Homa. Now, I think Homa, if you want to throw him in like a GPP flyer, that's fine. Scott Stallings, so I don't mind Scott Stallings there. If you're ending up on Scott Stallings, I kind of get it. I'll bring him up here on the key stats. So, all right, so Scott Stallings here. We'll pull him up here on the 9 to 5 sheet. Remember, this is a super simple stat sheet here on the 9 to 5 page. So we got it pulled up here. So Scott Stallings, recent form rank, that's not that good, but everything else, course history rank, remember that's comp course history as well. Doing well in that. Stat fit rank, he ranks out top 20. Top 23 in the model this week, which is kind of why I think he's priced up a little bit. Sure, the recent form might not exactly be there, but he's a guy where if you're ending up on him, I kind of get it. I do. So if you want to play him, you can. Not someone I'm going overly out of my way to play, but I get it if you're trying to there, Brian. Infamous wants to talk about Michael Grillo. I think I had it that time. So value-wise, it kind of makes sense. Recent form, okay. Course history rank, once again, that's comp course history rank. Not the best. Stat rank, all right. He's fine. Nothing that I want to go crazy with really there. Model rank, he does grade out as someone that should be right around the cut line, so I do get that. I will say someone like David Hearn, I think is a little bit better play. He's ranking out as the 11th player in the model. Now, I do think that's a little bit skewed just because of really just early season data. Coming off of a miscut, 2 made cuts and a miscut. The data's just a little bit skewed there, but for value-wise, he does make some sense. So I think I'd rather go with him more so than I would rather go get a lick there. So that's where I'm at with that. Scott Harrington as well. So Scott Harrington, very similar play to Scott Stallings, actually, but Scott Harrington is actually cheaper. So it grades out as someone that should be right around the cut line there, but mostly Scott Harrington is a guy that really can go out and pop some weeks there. Look at this. So 41st for recent form rank, course history rank 37th, 37th stat fit rank. So he does it. He grades out as someone that should be right around the cut line, someone that should make the cut. So I do get it. I don't mind that as a play. I think there are going to be better options than him, but if you're really trying to fit in maybe someone like Zalatoris in there, if you're trying to fit him in there, or maybe Harold Varner is one of the best stat fits, if not the best stat fit this week. I mean, he is in my model, but some people might have it a little bit differently. He's going to be one of the top 5 players. I'd much rather, you can pay up for Harold Varner and then fit someone in like Scott Harrington if you want to do that. What about Dufner? So Dufner, no. This is another one where I heard him getting talked up, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? I'll pull him up on the DK side. You can kind of see the model right there. He does grade out someone who's going to be close to the cut line. Kind of priced up there. I'll pull him up on the DK sheet, though. All right, so I kind of get it. -6 in his last start. That's fine. Miscut at the Sanderson, that's whatever. It's more or less kind of looking at the big picture of things. He's going to be a guy where all things equal, he's going to be right around making the cut. And then if he does, I'm only seeing like a top 30 finish from him, where I think there's a little bit more secure players to make the cut. I wish he was a little bit better of a stat fit. If he was like 10 players better rank-wise, stat fit-wise, I'd probably like him a little bit more. If there's something to hang my hat on stat fit-wise, I'd be on him a little bit. I just don't have that this week. And I will say, really, for this range, I trimmed it down to like 3 players and then like 3 players in the value tier. I really trimmed down this section this week because that's just kind of the week that we have. There's solid plays in the mid-tier, kind of drops off, value tier and low tier there. So that's kind of what I did with those price point ranges. And I will say, guys, I just got done doing some freaking laps in the swimming pool, so my mouth is a little dry. Air's not completely back to my head. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know if any of you guys have ever swam laps. It gets pretty crazy there. A little lightheaded right now. So I'm going to be taking some water breaks here is kind of what I'm trying to get at. Did that like a half an hour before the live stream. Hank Lebioda here. So Hank Lebioda is a big no for me. Once again, another one of the guys that we're getting some chatter this week where I don't really get what people are seeing with it. Kind of just a name value thing. Kind of just a guy where he typically does play well at events like this. I get that. Fine play for his price point. I get that as well. But there's better values down there. It's more or less. I'm fine if you guys think it's going to help you get 6 for 6 or 5 out of 6 across the cut line. That makes sense. The -3 at the Safeway Open, that's fine. Just, it worries me. The easiest way to sum it up, he worries me as a play this week. Stat-wise, we're looking at stats, so I'm pulling it up on the 9-to-5 stat sheet here, the full stat sheet. Total driving, 200th. Ball striking, 162nd. Strokes gained total, 209th. Total putting, 143rd. Bogey avoidance, 166. Strokes gained from 125 to 150, 71st. And that's his best stat. Greens and regulation, 103. Strokes gained differential, 87. Not good. The reason why people like him is because he played well at the Corrales, and he finished third here last year. Kind of decent recent form. Stats aren't there. I really think if you look back at last year, he was playing somewhat well then. The Corrales, it was good to see that he played well there. There's just nothing to really hang your hat on that says, hey, this guy's going to make the cut, and if he does make the cut, he's going to get a top 20 finish. And that's kind of the struggle with early season DFS in general, is you're kind of taking stabs at players. Malnati and Wesley Bryant. Infamous, man, that is this week, though. So, I just got done kind of talking people down from Lebioda and Dufner. That's kind of the week that we have. Honestly, we're paying up for Malnati because he is in good recent form. If he wasn't, let's say you throw in this as a miscut, he would be right down there with Dufner, with Lebioda, and I'd probably be saying the same things, where someone like Tyler McCumber, it's pretty similar play to Peter Malnati, where Peter Malnati is just getting juiced up because of recency bias, I guess, although this is, of course, where Peter Malnati should make the cut, but we look at Tyler McCumber, he's priced down, like I said, because he missed the cut. He was a guy that had 2 top 10 finishes in a row, or that's what we're seeing with Peter Malnati, so that is definitely worrisome. More of his GPP play. And then who's the other guy? Wesley Bryant. So Bryant I'm not worried about just because of the price point for him. And that's kind of the problem, is that DraftKings really priced him at a price point where it kind of takes not all the risk out of it. Obviously, if he misses a cut, that hurts you, but he hasn't played bad golf since he's returned to the tour. Safeway Open, -4 there, not a bad finish. Everything else, great. T31 or better. So Wesley Bryant at this price point just isn't a bad play. Really, it goes back to kind of the theme earlier on at the start of the season. The only reason to fade Wesley Bryant this week is that there's no reason to fade him, which we saw kind of happen a lot, especially at this price point range. The 8K price point range happened a ton where you don't really have a reason to fade someone, except for that's the reason that you fade them, because there's no reason to, and then they miss the cut. It's one of the weirdest things. I don't know if these players know they're getting talked up a lot, and it gets to them mentally, and it kind of just distracts them from their practice rounds. I don't really get it, but it's weird how that happens. I don't see that being Wesley Bryant this week. I think he's going to be a fine play. Let's see here. So still like Beau Hossler. So yeah, some of those players I was talking down value-wise is because I like Beau Hossler. It does worry you a little bit there with Beau Hossler. But he's been making cuts. I think it was 5 straight in a row. Let me scroll down there. Yeah, so 5 straight in a row. And then the one before at the Wyndham Championship, still shot under par. So not bad there. Look at comp course history, 24th, 41st, 41st, and a 35th. You like to see that. 4 straight make cuts there. He's a guy that's casually checking all the boxes. And I know the stats aren't exactly that great. So you look at total putting, 106, bogey avoidance, 107, greens and regulation, 65th, strokes gained differential, 86, not great. But then you get to total driving, ball striking, it gets a little bit better there. And then strokes gained total gets better there. But he still ranks out as the top 25 stat fit. And that kind of echoes what we have this week. Player pool-wise, obviously they're not the best players on tour for a guy with kind of these poor stats to be ranking out top 25. But still, he's just a fine value play. 5 straight make cuts on tour, doesn't have a miscut comp course history, great odds a top 25 stat fit. At this price point, it makes just a ton of sense to try to fit him into your builds. Now, I do think the best strategy this week is going to be to go fair and balanced, but Beau Hossler does make a ton of sense. Yeah, infamous swimming. it's great and it sucks at the same time. I don't really get it, how to explain it, but it's a good feeling when you finally are swimming and like when you get done with it in the winter. I don't know. There's just a great feeling. But the whole, like, I swam in high school actually for 2 years, sophomore and junior year, made it to state one of the years, and I hated it. It was like the worst sport ever. Like, I just absolutely hated it. But then, like, you kind of just go back to swimming. I don't know. It's just one of the weirdest things ever. I'm not a runner, never enjoyed that. So, like, swimming and biking has kind of been my go-to for cardio. It's just the weirdest thing. Random tangent there about swimming. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get back in shape. The quarantine was kind of rough there for fitness-wise. So is Justin Suh going to be chalk? Because I really haven't seen much about him. I was looking on Twitter. I was kind of trying to listen to some of the other podcasts out there just to see if he was getting chatter, and I just was missing it, and I could have missed it. I was just skimming through those to see because I haven't seen anything on him. And I honestly could just be missing it, but I saw other players in his price point range getting talked up a little bit more, which is just kind of shocking to me because he's literally the best play on the board given his price point. It does worry you that before this season he sucked, but I think he flipped that switch mentally with the new season. But I don't know. I saw this boy getting talked about a lot. I'm not going to butcher his last name there, but he worries me as a play. You got Norlander there, who's a fine play. Scott Piercy, fine play. Adam Schenk, fine play. So Scott Piercy, you brought him up. I'll talk about Scott Piercy here. I'll talk about Malnati again there, Turf Talk. So yeah, Scott Piercy here just real quick because I was skimming over him. He is a fine play. 9-to-5's boy, 2 years ago now. Played him a ton 2 years ago. Kind of cooled off last year. Maybe he's coming back. I don't know. So look at his last 4 starts. Really not bad there. T29, under par. That's fine. Wasn't great that week. T57 and a T20. The problem with Scott Piercy is that he's typically been a great total driver and great ball striker, and we just haven't seen that for over a year. Now, it is getting better. He ranks 64th in total driving, 35th in ball striking this year, and 35th in greens and regulation. If he can cut down on his bogeys and putt a little bit better, he's going to make the cut, and he could easily get a top 20 finish. He ranks out around top 20 in my model this week, which, with his price point, that's pretty much even keel. He's a guy that I think will make the cut. He's a guy that I think will finish like top 25. Fine price point. If you're doing like a fair and balanced approach, you can play him. It makes sense. And then Pierre Malnati, you asked about him as well. I already touched on him earlier, but it's the stats for him that really stick out. I'll pull him up on the super simple stat sheet here, actually. All right, we'll pull up Peter. So the price point's horrible. Course rank history is horrible. But the stat fit, great. Top 15 in that. And you look at why. You look at what stats are popping. Strokes gained total, 5th. Total putting, 5th. Strokes gained from 125 to 150, 31st. Strokes gained differential, 17th. Greens and regulation, around 70th. And ball striking, around 70th. It's really the fact that at the Corrales, he finished 41st. The Macoba, 58th, and he missed the cut at the Puerto Rico Open. But the Macoba and the Puerto Rico Open, that was over a year ago, so that data is not as significant, and that's kind of why I haven't been overly emphasizing that this week. I'm really looking at last year. I'm looking at the Corrales for data. It kind of sucks because the Macoba and the Puerto Rico Open, if those had played this year, it would have been better to be able to use those, but we can't because quarantine and whatnot, COVID reasons. Not a bad play. Let's see here. Russell Knox, McNeely. Yeah, McNeely I can't play. Just not feeling him as a play this week. Russell Knox, if you want to go with him, he's one of the fall golfers that seem to play well during the fall. You can go with him if you want to. I get that. It's going to be a fine play. I'll pull up Knox here. I'm going to do some quick fire here, and then I'll probably be wrapping up in about 8 minutes. I'll try to get to some of the outright bets. So yeah, Russell Knox I do get. He does play better in the fall. It seems like this should be a course that fits his game really well. For me, 7.6 is a little bit too high up for me to like overly want to play him. But this is a course where, typically speaking, this should be a good event for him. Finished 11th here last year, 5th in greens regulation, 11th in bogey avoidance, and 54th in ball striking. He typically does play well in some windy conditions as well, which is probably why he finished 11th last year here. So it does make sense as a play. Just it's hard for me to really pump up a guy that's coming off of 2 missed cuts, and you look at his like 3 out of his last 4 starts have been pretty bad. You know, it's really hard to say that that's a good play because chances are he's not going to be a good play and he's going to miss the cut. But there is that upside there with him this week, and that's why you can't completely ignore him because he really could show that upside and go off and have a great week. What the heck? Teeter, so we got some punt plays from Brian here. So who are they? Ollie Schneiderjens. Remember when he was good? That was fun. I can't play it until I see it with him. So I'm not going to be playing him. Let's see here. Josh Teeter. He's a guy where there was a stretch where he was playing some good golf and it just wasn't showing up performance-wise. Like the stats were there and he was playing, decent, and it just wasn't really showing up. I think that might have been leading up to the Puerto Rico Open. We might have been on him that week. I forget. But just has gone away. The stats have gone away, so I can't really play him at that price point. Someone that I hate that I like as a play is actually Ricky Barnes. Not really sure why. I mean, I know why, but I don't want to play him. But that's kind of the week that we have. 2 made cuts in a row. That's really it. I mean, his game style does somewhat set up well for this. I would rather go with that play at the same price point pretty much. I hope Justin Suh isn't chalky. That would suck. He should be. But really, I'm just going to plug and play him because it's the correct move. Let's see here. Low punt plays. We already went over that. Let's see here. He is. Yeah, so I'm going to try to butcher it. I don't know how to say it. I'll pull him up here on the DK sheet. I got to learn how to say this. This is one where I just need to hear it a few times to be able to say it correctly. He's going to be a good player if he plays over here consistently. And I touch on this a decent amount. These guys that are coming over from the European Tour or wherever, I think it takes them a little bit to like get acclimated to kind of the U.S. swing of PGA Tour golf. They're in a new country. They got to figure out the stay. There's a lot more that goes along behind the scenes that people just don't really think about. Whether that's like passport wise, figuring out stay, figuring out driving, all that little stuff I think adds up for these European Tour players where they kind of just got to get used to that. And then once they do, they just go off and really play well. You see that consistently with these European Tour guys where they just get off to kind of a slower start. And then once they figure out, they just go off and dominate. A lot of people are talking him up because he obviously played well on the Euro Tour side there. The young gun played well. Recently, though, his form hasn't been there. Missed a cut at the U.S. Open, played horrible. The Scottish Open didn't really play well. And the BMW PGA Championship didn't play well. So nothing to really hang your hat on for this high of a price point. Now, yes, the caliber of field is worse here, essentially, but the courses are a little bit different than what he's used to playing on the European Tour. Maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't. I just can't pay for that risky of a play at this price point. Even if it was like $1,000 cheaper, I probably wouldn't be on him that much because we still haven't seen him enough. Yeah, so Myron there. So, yeah, we did talk about Justin Suh there. I'll pull him up here again. So, one of my favorite plays. Whether he's going to be chalky or not, that's what we got to see. So, 3 straight finishes of T21 or better. An absolute beast, stat fit-wise. Obviously, the really only course history that he has was the T14 at the Corrales. But 2 comp courses that you could use are the Corrales and the Barracuda. Obviously, he went off and produced at both of those, so you like to see that. But the T8 is kind of what I'm hanging my hat on for his most recent form. There's a little bit of recency bias with this because, really, we've only seen him play well this season. Last season didn't play well, but overall, just checking all the boxes. That's something that you want to see. I want to see 3 straight make cuts in a row. I want to see that they're a top 30 stat fit, and I want to see 3 straight make cuts course history-wise. Now, obviously, we don't exactly have course history per se because we're looking at some comp courses as well, but he has that too, so he makes a lot of sense. All right, so Seb Straka, I'm fine with. There's going to be a point where I think he figures it out with his game. He's a guy kind of similar to Max Homa where they kind of just go off and have splashes of really great weeks. The only thing with Seb Straka is he's a better stat fit. He's got a guy that typically does strike the ball really well, places the ball where he wants to. He hasn't exactly been doing that this year thus far. I'm not sure if there's anything like changing that much, but he still ranks out, 24th in total driving, 41st in ball striking, which he's still a top 10 stat fit. What worries me the most with him is that he had a miscut here last year, the 33rd at the Corrales, decent, and then miscut at the Makoba like a year or so ago. Not bad, decent recent form. This is a play at the price point where it does make sense. Makes for a great GPP play. Tough to trust in cash, but it wouldn't shock you if he has a good week at all. He's one of the guys where I'd have to double check. I don't think I ended up on him in my player pool, but he was one of the ones where if I didn't, he was one of the last 5 off the player pool. I typically like to trim it down to around 20 to 30 players, and I think he just missed it this week. All right, let's see here. Duggan. Yeah, no. No for me. Once again, I think he's getting talked up just looking at like strokes gain data total versus the field because, 4 straight decent tournaments, 2 made cuts where they're top 25 finishes. The Corrales, even par, not great. 1 bad round there for him. Wyndham Championship didn't play poorly. I think that's why people might be talking him up. All right, and then Pat Perez. So Pat Perez, I remember being on him at the Shriners where he was a letdown there, shooting -5 and missing the cut. It's very rare. Remember that one. It's kind of like NFL last week where the easier it is, the higher scoring it is, or in golf's term, the lower scoring it is, the harder it is to predict DFS-wise because it kind of levels out the whole field for DFS purposes, where in golf, if it's super easy, where every golfer is going on playing well, these guys are pro tour players. If the course is set up easy, they're going to be able to all take advantage of that. And we saw that at the Shriners. So don't really penalize them that much for the -5 there. That was still good golf. It just wasn't good enough that week. So the Shriners, that was fine. T21 at the Corrales, T9 at the Safeway Open. Let me pull up on my page here. So Pat Perez. So strokes gain total putting, bogey avoidance, greens and regulation, strokes gain differential, all top 75 or better. He actually grades out as a top 20 stat fit this week. Not bad. It's fine. Makoba, he had a top 10 finish there. He's kind of worth the risk in GPPs there. It won't surprise me if he goes on and gets a top 10 this week. I would have to double check as well. I think he was one of the players where I was just off of him where a little bit too much players in this price point range that I was on. I'd rather go with Shank, a little bit more of a made cut there. Sink, Wesley Bryan. I typically don't want to go too heavy on one price point range because then it's just harder to make an optimal build. And that's, for the most part. We saw that last week with it was this price point range last week where there was like 4 players that actually ended up finishing like T20 or better, with Ryan Palmer being one of them. I think Brian Harmon, another one, played well. Sebastian Munoz played well. It's just hard to like differentiate a lot of times. And for me, I actually just like Shank, Sink, Brian a little bit more than Pat Perez this week. All right, Andrew. So Vegas, Lewis, or Merritt. If you're new to the channel, you know that Troy Merritt went to the same college as me for about a year, and then he graduated upwards. He didn't graduate. He just transferred upwards to a better school. So I always kind of favor Troy Merritt a little bit there. So I'm just going to go with him. he's weird because he's a guy that typically does ball strike and total drive the ball better. Typically is a really good putter, and that's kind of why he has those random really good weeks. So far, he hasn't been total driving the ball just yet. Yeah, Myron, I get why he's getting talked up as well. For me, I just need to see it first with those Euros when they're coming over like that. That's what I need to see first with them. Yeah, so Stewart Cink is worth the risk across the board. Cash, GPP. I mean, look at this. So just dating back to last year, too. 15 out of 18 cuts in a row. At the basis of like PGA DFS, if you're just chasing guys that are cut makers, you're going to do fine. You might not like have those really pop weeks, but you're going to do fine. You're going to cash decently. So like Stewart Cink, where he's only missed 3 cuts out of his last 18 starts, that's absolutely phenomenal. He's made 3 straight cuts in a row. Wyndham Championship, you really just saw one bad round there, which does worry you because the one bad round there, we saw that. We saw one bad round at the Shriners where he was kind of someone in contention heading into the weekend, and he just bombed pretty much, which was unfortunate. But at this price point, he's a guy who's pretty much checking all the boxes now. I wish his recent form was ascending instead of descending like we're seeing there. First T12, T64. I wish that was reverse. Not really. Actually, I don't, because the victory would mean that he's probably not going to have a good week, that mental hangover from a victory. But you get what I'm saying. You want to see the form getting better instead of getting worse. So that's really the only worry with him. Danny Willett, no for me. He is a guy that does play well in the wind. Everyone kind of knows that historically with Danny Willett. Great wind player. I just don't get the price point for him. He just hasn't been playing good golf recently. He had some splashes in there where for a little bit he was playing decent golf, where that's where he got all of his made cuts. And really other than that, kind of been bad. He's not been consistent enough for me to like him as a play. I'm going to get into some of the sports book side of it, and then I'm going to be getting out of here, guys. So this is a fun one. I'm looking forward to it. Do want to say, come join the NFL DFS live stream as well. That'll be on Sundays, 10 a.m. Central to 11 a.m. Central. It's been pretty spot on, and obviously I can answer your questions like this for that slate on there as well. All right. This is weird. Let's see. Is this all they have available now? Am I just clicking wrong? Normally they have outrights, and they did earlier this week. That is strange. What's going on here? That is weird. I might have to switch to another website here. Interesting. Give me a second. I'm going to switch to another site there for betting wise. That is very strange that we're seeing that. Go to BetMGM, I guess. Pull up BetMGM. That's weird. There were on DK. I just don't know if they changed it. I don't know. That was strange to see there. I'm pulling up BetMGM though. They're all right. All right, we can see that all right, I think. Whoops. I wasn't prepared for DK not to have the rods, guys. Give me a second. Got to make some screen adjustments for you. There we go. Decent enough. I can't show you the DK build, Brian. I wish I could. That's how you get in trouble doing that. I wish I could. In NFL, you can kind of get away with it because there's a ton of players playing. But in PGA, it's like everyone would just be playing the same build then. I wish I could. I wish it was big enough to the point where showing a lineup like that would be fine. But real quick, so betting outright, it does make a lot of sense. So Harry Varner, if he's the best stat fit, if he finally puts it all together, he should go out and crush this tournament. That makes a ton of sense. Kind of same thing for Doc Redman. I'm fine with that. Will Zalatoris, those three are kind of the top three on the board, and they really should be. And then after that, you should kind of just go longer. Chris Ventura, I like. Justin Suh, I like. Now, Denny McCarthy, I think, is going to make the cut. Maybe he could push for the top 10. Same thing with, Grillo. So I'd much rather bet, Denny McCarthy, Grillo to top 10. Kind of same thing for Cameron Tringale, maybe more so for a top 20. I think that makes much more sense. And then I'm going to go lower, kind of going to do some longer shot odds for outrights. We've seen a lot of these guys that really shouldn't be in contention to win. Even like Patrick Cantlay last week, he wasn't playing that well. There's really no signs. There's a little bit of signs to hang your hat on, but for the most part, it wasn't there with him. Like Justin Thomas, John Rahm, those were logical ones. And someone like even Sebastian Munoz or Ryan Palmer, there's more to hang your hat on for those guys than there was for Patrick Cantlay. Obviously, Patrick Cantlay is a much better player than Sebastian Munoz and freaking Ryan Palmer, but you get the point there. It's these guys where we haven't exactly had stuff to hang our hat on have been winning, which has been kind of crazy. So that we can find some longer shot odds then. Wesley Bryan is one of those guys. I already talked him up a pretty good amount, 50-1. Stuart Sink, 55-1. That's great. Honestly, though, I really think that this is the week that Suh wins. It seems like this should be the week that he puts all together for a victory. But we can find some longer shot odds. If you want to go with David Hearn, I think he was a little bit better on DK. You can kind of shop around that price point. 90-1 is not that good for him. Wish we could do a little bit better there. Let's see here. Will Gordon, too. Decent stat fit. I don't want to be on DraftKings. This is one of those players where I don't want to be on them at all on DraftKings. Where if you throw a little bit of it on him for betting outright, maybe betting a top 10, it makes a little bit of sense because chances are he's going to miss the cut. So you don't really want to risk that with your DraftKings build because more than likely he's going to miss the cut. But let's say he puts it all together. He could easily go out and win this one because he is a good stat fit. DJ Trahan, I think he's going to be a fine top 20 bet. He's a guy that should make the cut. Decent play. And then where's Bo Hosler on this? So 71 for Bo Hosler. That's fine. That makes sense. We'll say something like Joseph Brenlet. Think he's fine for a top 20 bet. That's fine with me. So nothing too crazy. I will say Seb Straka kind of falls into the category of Will Gordon for me. I told you guys I'm pretty sure I didn't end up on him in my player pool. Have to double check that. But he's a guy where I'd much rather bet him to almost outright or top 10 than I would be to play him in my DK build because he's a guy where if he misses a cut, it's going to burn you. Chances are he should be right around the cut line. He obviously could contend if he's putting it all together, and obviously his stats point to the fact that he could do that. Adam Shanks 50-1 on BetMGM. So that's what we got. So I'll be taking questions here for about another minute or so, and then we'll be going off. Interesting week, though. I'm curious. I'm going to do some research on DraftKings for their sportsbook for the Bermuda Championship. Oh, no. I think they tweeted out something earlier about that they're having issues with their site, which isn't a good look for FanDuel or DraftKings. Those two have kind of been struggling recently with their, data providers and whatnot. It's kind of been weird. So Cameron Piercy, I'm fine with. I actually don't mind him as a play this week. His price point's fine. It makes sense. Ventura or Tringale. That's tough. I mean, I definitely like Ventura more, for sure, for me. Tringale, I feel like we're paying up a little bit too much for made cut with Tringale, where Ventura, I think he has winning upside. I'm not sure we see that with Tringale this week, where I think he should be locked into a top 20 finish, although I don't want to use the word lock this week with the caliber of field that we have, especially at his price point. But Ventura for me, I like him much better. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks for joining the live chat. Definitely keep coming. We're going to try to schedule these at the same time each and every week. Should be able to do that, so stay tuned. One more real quick. Henry Stenson, no for me. He's a guy where I just need to see him put together. He typically is a good wind player, and if it does get windy, which it should here and there, I'm fine with. Infamous says Tringale is a trap play. Not sure I necessarily agree with that, although there are better plays around his price point range. So in theory, I get exactly what he's saying because there's better plays there. So I get it. I will have a little bit of him just to mix and match. I don't want to go too overweight on anyone this week. So, all right. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please give me a like, subscribe. You probably already are subscribed. So if you want to help the channel out, you can comment on some of the